Hello everyone and welcome back to the Dungeon Learner's Guide. My name is Pointer and today we're going to be walking through the basics of how to play a game of Magic the Gathering. So, obviously, I'm not going to be running you through all the ins and outs because this is a complicated game, but we're going to go over the basics. So, right now I have one of my own personal decks set out in front of me, and we're just going to kind of play a game, I guess, for lack of a better sense. And just to make life easier, we'll be explaining things as we go. So, a game of Magic is played with a deck of 60 cards. A deck can have any color of the cards in it. In this case, for Magic, there are red, green, blue, white, and black. And out of those cards, you are able to have 4 copies of any one particular card. So, we're going to kind of run through a fake game. I'll explain things as we go. And if there's anything you feel I didn't explain well enough, please leave a note down in the comments for me and I will make sure to go back over it. So, to start, if we were playing a game, we draw 7 cards, so it's 5, 6, 7, and we make sure our life is set to 20. Now, the goal of a game of Magic is to get your opponent's life total to 0 before they get your life total to 0. And you can do that in a number of different ways, but to start, we're going to draw 7 cards, and heck, we need an opponent, right? So let's draw 7 cards for the other side as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Now, I'm going to put them face up. That way it's not super complicated for everybody. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That is our opponent, we'll say. And then ours over here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. Now, the most important cards you're going to see come out of these are actually going to be these ones. These are going to be called lands. And you're going to need lands to play anything else in this game. So, we'll say this side, my left side here, is going to go first. So at the start of their turn, if they're going first, they do not draw a card. After this point, you always draw a card at the start of your turn, okay? So we would say, all right, I'm going to start, I'm going to play 1 land. Every turn, you get to play 1 land from your hand. And then these lands are going to be what controls what else you're allowed to play. So, for example, in my hand here, I have a Ghitu Lava Runner, who, if you notice, is a creature. And he has a power and a toughness down in the bottom corner. So we have his power is 1, his toughness is 2. That means that every time he hits something, he does 1 damage, and it takes 2 damage for something to kill him. Up in the top right here, we see the cost of the card. He costs 1 red mana. And lucky for us, we have 1 mountain, which makes 1 red mana. So we're going to play this card. Now, to play this card, we have to use our land. We don't get to just play stuff for free every single turn. So to use it, we're going to tap it as if it were a paint bucket, and we're kind of pouring out the red mana. We'll tip it sideways, and then we get to play our creature. Now, creatures have this thing called Summoning Sickness, so the very first turn you play them, they can't do anything. They're just kind of sitting here. Next turn, we'll get to do something with him. Alright, so we would say there's nothing else I can do. I'm going to pass my turn, and we would go to our opponent. Our opponent, since they did not play first, get to draw a card. Now, what that means for them is because they're a little bit behind, right? They didn't get to play anything first. They just get that extra card. And they're going to do probably the same thing, right? You play a land, you look at what you have, and you try to figure out if there's anything you can play. In this case, they actually have the same creature, a Gitu Lava Runner. So we tap our land, we play our Lava Runner, and now there is a creature on both sides of the field. The opponent would say, oh, nothing else I can do. They'll pass back to the first person. And this is where you get to kind of reset. So at the start of your turn, you untap anything that was tapped. So this mountain comes back, and you get to use it again. Then you draw a card at the beginning of your turn. And because we still have another land in our hand, we'll play that. So now we can play anything that costs 2 mana. And so here's what we're going to do. If you notice, we have a 1/2 creature. Our opponent has a 1/2 creature. So I know that this guy couldn't kill our guy. So we are going to attack our opponent. And the way that we do that is just like the lands turn sideways, the creatures also turn sideways. And the creature is going to attack the opponent. The important thing here, and the thing that's different from some other card games, is your creatures do not attack the other player's creatures. They only attack the other player. But the other player can say, oh, there's a 1-power creature attacking me. I can let him hit me, and I take 1 damage, right, and I go to 19. Or I can tell my creature to block. And if they block, then both creatures do damage to each other at the exact same time. So they both take 1 damage. In this case, neither creature dies, right? They're both still here, they're both okay. And so we'll say that was our turn. That was all we did, and it's now our opponent's turn. Our opponent gets to untap. They get to draw. They also get to play a land. And they decide they're also going to attack us. So they're going to turn their creature sideways, tap it, and they're going to attack us. Now, if we wanted to block, we could use our creature. But, just like the lands, remember, if something is tapped, you can't use it. So because our creature is tapped, we cannot block him. So we have to take 1 damage. So we will take 1 damage and go to 19. And our opponent will say, okay, that is my turn. And they will pass back to us. We will untap. Just like with the lands, everything untaps. So our creature comes back. We draw a card. Now we don't have another land to play. That's okay. What we do have, though, is a spell. Now, this one is Lightning Bolt, right? Notice it costs 1 red, just like our little guy down here. But it doesn't have a power and toughness. It only does what it says on the card as a 1-time use. So it says Lightning Bolt deals 3 damage to target creature or player. So we are going to spend one of our mountains, and we're going to cast a Lightning Bolt to do 3 damage to whatever we want. And since our opponent's creature is kind of being a bit of a pain in the butt, we're going to hit him for 3 damage. Now, since we use this goes to the graveyard, it goes away. And since he took 3 damage, and he only has 2 toughness, he is also going to go away and go to the opponent's graveyard. And now, since our opponent doesn't have a creature, we can attack them for 1 and do 1 damage. However, our opponent also has a Lightning Bolt. And an instant is a spell that can be played on anyone's turn. So our opponent can actually say, oh, wait a minute, I don't want to take 1 damage from him. So instead, they can spend 1 and do 3 damage to our creature too, which kills our creature and it doesn't get to do any damage. The only thing our opponent couldn't do is play this version, which if you notice, it's like Lightning Bolt, it does 3 damage, and it even costs the same, but they couldn't use this one, because this one is a sorcery, which means it can only be done on your turn. You can't do it on anyone else's turn. Okay? Now, obviously we could play through the whole game. That would probably take a little bit of time. But the main idea of this is that the first person to hit 0 life is going to lose. And in the future, we'll talk a little bit about what all the different colors do, because we only took a look at red today. We'll take a look at other decks in the future. I'll actually walk you through this deck and some of the other decks I have sitting around to kind of show you different styles of playing. But if you're interested in playing Magic, and I understand that buying physical cards and playing physically with people is not the best option right now, there are ways to play online, and there are even free ways to play online. So I'm going to put links down in the description of this video to Magic Arena, which is a free way to play online. It just doesn't have all the cards that have ever been printed for Magic, just the newer ones. And there's also Magic Online, which you have to pay a little bit of money for, but it does have all the cards ever printed. So if you guys have any questions about how the game is played, if you think I missed anything, please let me know. We're also going to, in the future, take a look at the way that the turn order actually works itself, because we didn't get too much into that at this point. And other than that, I think that's a pretty decent explanation. But if you have suggestions for future videos, please let me know. And I will see you guys on the other side of the Dungeon Learner's Guide.